One experience that will always stay in my heart and soul was that some people attacked him on Halloween. And here we are coming to Halloween. They took some rocks in socks and they beat the living crap out of him. His head was totally swollen at the hospital. And when I got there, I says, what would you tell those people who did this to you? Mm-hmm. He says, you have to forgive them because they don't know any better.
I am so excited to be interviewing Lise Robinson today, specifically about grief. So I have a lot of people who follow me that are going through some pretty significant grief. I don't know if you know my story of losing 3 children and my husband, just really trying to get as much information as we can out there and just being open and talking about grief. So let's start with what got you into specializing in grief?
Well, like yourself, it's probably those significant, life-changing moments that have altered our destiny. And I want to say, first of all, I'm very sorry for all your losses. I can't imagine losing 3 children on top of your spouse, because children are supposed to outlive us, right?
Right.
And for myself, I haven't experienced quite what you have, but I've lost 6 people. First of all, my dad, and then my brother, and then my first husband who died in a house fire, and then my mother, and then my brother. So, and then my other brother. So it was like all these monumental losses that helped me to shift. And I says, you know, it just seems like these things keep happening to me. And I said, is it happening to me or is it happening for me? But there's a rites of passage of life. And I understand that, having gone to a lot of elders and talking to them about the gift of life, and that at some time we are going to evolve and it'll be our time to move forward into the spiritual realm. And a lot of people talk about death like it's the finality of absolutely everything. It's the finality of this physical world as we know it.
Yeah.
However, what I realized after losing so many people, that the spirits do live on and they can communicate.
Yes. Yes. As I interview grief experts and people who have gone through grief, there is a consistent theme of working through this spiritual relationship. And we often get stuck in what we can see and hear and feel, what we were taught to believe, and then something traumatic happens. I describe my grief kind of as traumatic grief. And I was sitting with my sister and we were kind of talking about that. And she said, losing a sibling would be traumatic grief. Can you talk to us about losing your siblings?
My 3 brothers. Well, in 2015, I had a special needs brother, and he had a lot of problems with kidneys, and he had dialysis for years. So we knew he had severe problems. However, we had a beautiful Christmas and we had celebrated, and I just went to the hospital to visit him. And that night he had passed away in his sleep. And my sons were the last ones to see him. So they said, see you later. And he was special needs, but he said, ta-ta, see you later. You know, kind of like our angel on earth. And his name is Jean, by the way. And that was the first loss of my siblings. First, it was my dad. He died to cancer. And we kind of knew, like, we were grieving all throughout his sickness. So it's different when there is kind of like an epiphany when you go through that, losing the life due to illness. So this illness with my first brother, my second brother was a shock because that was a heart attack. And the third one was to cancer. So it's like you're getting prepared along the way for your final, goodbyes sort of thing. Goodbyes in the way that we know it on this planet Earth. And so that's how it basically happened with my brother. He was sick for a while and then he passed away at the hospital. So on the 26th of December, we had a beautiful Christmas with him.
Mm-hmm.
which was awesome. We had a beautiful time. We played games with him at the hospital. We had a meal together, and it was kind of like a really nice way to, I would say, not even say goodbyes, but see you later sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And having those cherished memories of that
Mm-hmm.
specific day will always stay with me because it was a joyous time. And I'll always remember all the great times that we had together because it was fantastic. He was, like I said, an angel on earth, special needs, and he always forgave people. One of the biggest things, he had been beaten up a lot of times in his life because of his special needs. One experience that will always stay in my heart and soul was that some people attacked him on Halloween. And here we are coming to Halloween. They took some rocks in socks and they beat the living crap out of him. His head was totally swollen at the hospital. And when I got there, I says, what would you tell those people who did this to you?
Mm-hmm.
He says, you have to forgive them because they don't know any better. And I thought to myself, what a resilient heart this man has.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people keep knocking him down and he was able to come out that way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the stories that I cherish with my siblings. So then it was like losing my other brother, Jacques. He died the day before my mom passed away. He died. My mom passed away. We were going to her funeral, and he died the day before her funeral. So he had a massive heart attack in my mom's kitchen at her place. My son was trying to revive him, and he said, it's okay. Let me go, basically, to my son. And my son was traumatized from this. And so that was devastating. And, you know, within a week, 2 funerals, basically.
Yeah.
And then just recently in March, my brother passed away to cancer. He had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer 18 months prior to March, and he passed away from pancreatic cancer. So that was like, there was some grief going on through all that time. And with the multiple losses, I feel like it kind of chose me, being a social worker, community developer for, 20 years with this city and then working nonprofits for 10 years. So that's why I said there's got to be a better way to healing grief than going through a therapist and being told, here's a book, read it, and go home and heal, basically. And that was during COVID when I lost my mom. And I said, oh my gosh, it's just really heavy duty, can't even go into a therapist for appointments or anything. So we did everything through phone or virtual. And that's what happened to me. I felt like there's got to be something better. So that's when the creation of programs and writing about my experience happened. Writing was really a gift to me, also nature, and finding gratitude through the expression of the arts, either through writing, through painting, or anything else that I could, go into the world of music or anything, going to concerts and being proactive with how I'm going to manifest wellness in my life, because I didn't want to be dominated with all the negativity that comes with grief.
Yeah.
So a lot of people go through severe depression, mental health issues, and I chose not to get into the drugs because the doctor wanted to medicate me. And, and I said, no, I can't be medicated. I need to get through this straight on. And they don't give you alternatives, holistic healing, ways of healing. It's just like, here, go ahead. And then the therapist basically told me, here's a book, go to it.
Yeah. It's disheartening how little we have on grief. I'm a medication prescriber. Sometimes I do prescribe medication. But I think that what I tell people is you have to do something. So right now, currently, I'm not on any medication, but I'm seeing an acupuncturist and I'm doing meditation and I'm actively working through that grief. In our culture, are you in the United States?
I'm in Canada.
You're in Canada. Here, we have similar cultures as far as mental health of like, well, this happened to me. I just have to like push through, move on, and we have to take the time to feel the pain. But we live in a culture that doesn't want to feel the pain.
Mm.
And so talk to me a little bit about the differences in pain, sibling versus parent, and what did you have to process through?
Well, and then also the loss of my son's father.
Mm-hmm.
That was to tell you the variances in the pain because I have children involved and watching them go through the pain. My son became the caregiver, like at the end of taking care of the funeral and everything. Of course, I helped him walk through that. And because of the nature of his death, it was shock at first because he burnt in a house. He was drunk and he died in a house fire. And that was devastating. And it took how many weeks before they could identify his body, to the dental records and everything. Mm-hmm. And then there was all kinds of family feuding about what kind of funeral he was going to have, because there was some layers of issues with spirituality and religion. Mm-hmm. So he was First Nations. So we honored his last wishes, and by having a ceremony with an elder, a pipe ceremony. Mm-hmm. But some of the Catholic relatives says, no, you've got to have a priest come. But some of them didn't want to accept the fact that he had said no to priests because he had been molested for years by a priest. And we know in Canada and United States and around the world, a lot of the Roman Catholic leaders haven't always been the healthiest. With over 110,000 children being abducted from their families and taken to residential schools. That's a whole other layer of trauma and grief and darkness in our history that people still fail to talk about. Mm-hmm. So that was another thing that we had to unpack and say no to the community. This is the way he wanted it, so we have to honor his last wishes. Mm-hmm. So that degree of pain, it's like I could feel the fire within my soul. And it was like I had to speak up for him in those moments. And it's like the spirit can transmute messages even from the other side. Mm-hmm. And when that happened to my sons, I said, I have to take an active role. So I stood up to the community and I said, this is exactly what's going to happen. And the last will and testament that I have right here is what he said and what he wanted. So please honor his last wishes. Mm-hmm. So I even wrote about it, leadership at death, and taking the lead and standing up. Mm-hmm. So that was excruciating pain because of what I saw with my sons. And both of them dealt with the grief differently. One got more active into his addictions of alcoholism, trying to mask the pain. He was an A student in university, and he just couldn't function after that. So he had to take a break. We went for therapy. He got back into education, and he's pretty well, his university, science degree. And then my other son, he's a comedian sort of type of guy, and he's still working on his comedy. And we all went to a conference in New Zealand, and both of them talked about their grief in different ways, explaining their story from their perspective. So my son created, as a way of coping with grief, was going into comedy, and it really helped him to soothe his soul. So 2 different kids, 2 different perspectives. Mm-hmm. And thank goodness today I can say that I have my son still, and they're walking pretty much, a spiritual path, learning from the elders, participating in ceremonies is really important and everything. So the degrees of pain with the loss of my mother, it was like losing my lifeline to this life. She always respected my ideology and what I was going through in my life because I was exposing to her what had happened to my husband at the time when we were going through our own issues regarding the sexual abuse that he had suffered for many, many years. So she was very open and listened quite attentively. And when she passed away, it was like I lost my lifeline basically. And she was very close to me. I was very independent and didn't ever want to create any stress on my mother. And that's the way I live my life. I try to do my best in order to not be a burden to her. So even going through my grief period with her, the first thing I did when daylight came is I went for a walk in the bush and I found a great big old oak tree. And I hugged that old oak tree and it was just like the warm wind covered me and the sun was shining down on me. She died on April the 18th. It was springtime. And that big old oak tree just was like a symbiotic communication. It was taking that pain away from my internal stomach, and it helped me to breathe stronger. And then when I looked up, I could see the sun rays beating down on me. And then I just felt this sense that my mom was right there with me, telling me that it was okay and that the winds of change have taken her spirit and warmed my heart and soul. And when I saw that big old oak tree with the arms, the boughs or the trees hanging, I thought of my mother and how she raised 9 children and how she stood there for all of us to grow and to respect each other for who we are, no matter how different we were. And I appreciated that so much in that moment. That was a big epiphany to my healing and my growth. And I was able to be strong because we couldn't have any funerals when she died. There was no funerals allowed, nothing. So it gave me time to write a legacy book about her life and putting together all the family pictures. And I had all my siblings come together and do a page for each one of my siblings because there's 9 of us. So we, even though if a few of them passed, we put pictures of them too to honor their lives with my parents. And it was really a sacred heirloom that every family should have.
Yeah. So I hear you saying a couple things: connecting with nature, connecting spiritually, doing ceremony and projects. Writing this book was a project. Not everybody is going to write a book, but it could be a photo album. It could be some sort of project. Those are the 4 things I picked up from your story so far.
Yes, absolutely. And those are very important things. Also, memorializing people and their anniversaries. Whenever it comes to our feasts for different events, like even, Christmas time, New Year's, or, changing of the seasons, we honor those spirits that have gone on. We thank them for having been here. One of the things that we do that's different than most people is before the meal, we take a little bit of all that food and we offer the spirits that food and we offer it to a tree or to the fire so that they can have that food. And when people miss their loved ones, it's a really great ritual to do. Yeah. Even when my mom passed away, the therapist says, "Oh, you got to write her a goodbye letter." I says, "Absolutely not. I'm not writing no goodbye letter. She's a part of my DNA. She's in me. I'm in her forever and ever." And I said, what I'm going to do is write a thank you letter. Thank you for this, that, and whatnot. And the thank yous change over time.
Yeah. Your story of doing a plate for the loved one that you lost reminds me of a military ceremony that we do in any kind of military dinner or program that we're having. There is always a fallen soldier seat where it is set to just represent the soldiers who have fallen. And so doing those things, continuing those traditions, looking, culturally at your past, what did people used to do 100 years ago? I think we've lost a lot of ceremony in our busy lifestyles. And in my journey, I did multiple things that were not necessarily of my cultural background, but did some Native American ceremonies, and just really that process of you have to move the pain. You have to feel it, but feel it in a way that's moving out of your body. I love how you said when you were hugging the tree that you just felt it releasing some of that pain. And so often people are feeling the pain, but it's not moving out of their body. They're
Yes.
holding on to it. So talk to us a little bit about your programs and how you help people in that process of grieving.
Well, unleashing the grief and decoding our grief is very important. Understanding your rites of passage. A lot of people don't celebrate, like you said, the different stages of their lives. And when we understand that and we respect that, then it's not such a shock. Yes, it's going to happen one day. And how is it that my ancestors used to deal with it? Well, I can remember when I was younger, you go to a funeral, you see them in the casket, or, that's usually how it was done. My parents didn't really talk about it. It was kind of like a taboo topic at that time. And even in a lot of cultures today, it still is. So get comfortable with talking about life and also the cycles of life, because it's natural. Not to be afraid. And that it's only people evolve into a different realm. And I call that the spiritual realm. We came and we make a difference in this world for a dash of a moment. And then we go and evolve to the next level. That's how I feel it is. That's what
and that's what the Unleashing Grief course helps people work through?
Yeah. So I teach people how to do the legacy book, how to create a virtual ceremony, how to create a poster presentation for the wake or funeral, because a lot of people have no idea. Also, 10 things to do after a person passes away. All those important, critical things. The next part is the healing. Like we go into the Ho'oponopono. I talk about the rites of passage. I talk about the 4 directions healing, which is also the medicine wheel, and healing, and how I utilize that in order for myself to heal. And my sons also, my son cut his hair after my mom passed away, and he put his hair right into the ocean, giving back to the earth as a part of his grieving. And the last part is yoga, laughter, because everyone has a healing element within themselves, and that's to laugh. And that laughing moves that vibration right out of your body. The last part of it is how to create a new life, new vision board, and goals and dreams for your life, and how to create a legacy for your own life by writing your own will. Like in Alberta here, you don't need to go to a lawyer. You can create your own will. And I used to be a financial advisor, and I can help people draft those. Where they have it signed, because a lot of people get the thought that, I can't afford it and I can't do it.
Yes.
Let's talk about it. Let's do it. And let's leave the biggest legacy that you can give for your families.
Perfect.
So this is so important that people run away from all of this. And some of the other tools that I've created is Beyond Grief, a warrior's guide to healing.
Yes.
Because
tell us about your book.
The book is all about the internal battle that we have. We got to take a personal inventory of where we're at. And we need these strategies to healing. And sometimes we don't understand exactly why is it that I'm reacting to grief this way with my brothers, my sisters, or even the people around me. And then some of the different healing mechanisms, of course, nature, writing, the arts, all these different things. How to move ourselves forward with a ton of exercises in there. How to change our mindset from being a victim to being the victor of your life.
Yes.
And what does that look like? Because I really feel like we all are warriors. We're all fighting something in our lives, whether it's grief, whether it's losing our jobs. It could be a different multitude of things in grief. Maybe losing, like I know a lot of people felt during the COVID that they lost their freedom, their ability to go out and do whatever the heck they want to. But now we're in a different time once again. But remember, it's a warrior's mindset. The only one that locks us up is ourselves, and how to unlock our mindset. So I teach people also about crisscross effects, how to move that pain very quickly, because you can have a storm in one day and sunshine in the next. And how can you change those mindsets very quickly without having to take years and years of therapy?
Yeah.
Some people need years and years of therapy, and some people need medication. However, there are methods out there now that we're growing and we're moving into a lot more healing options for people, because people are finding the words to find the solutions much quicker. So that's what I teach people, is what are the best solutions for you, and how can we put that warrior shield within you so that you can unlock your own oppressions, so you can break through and have the best life ever.
Right. Love it. Thank you so much. I think that shows a big growth in kind of the bigger picture and the spiritual awareness, the ceremony, all of the things that are really missing from the professional interventions that are provided for people going through grief. Yeah, absolutely.
And I wrote like 11 little books about different things that I did to help me. From writing the letters to doing posters. Like I even did a whole, for my mom's funeral, a whole big poster board and a ton of pictures. And all of those pictures on there really built on all the assets that she left within my life. Well, what we need to do is we need to rebuild the memories. We can shift all these memories into happy, so that we have more happy memories than we have sad. Because our family's legacy is not for us to suffer forever and a day. And the other thing too is all the little symbols that we get from nature. What is it? I had blue jays coming to my place every day. For how long? And they still come, and I feed them peanuts, and I know that's their spirit gut. A lot of my family checking in on me. And I say thank you to those. Even finding feathers or dragonflies or all these gifts that come to us when we go through grief and loss. And sometimes we don't even pay attention until we go through all of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's why
that's beautiful. And I've done a lot of those things. A lot of the things are in my grief documentary. But how can people find you? And we will have the details in the descriptions. And how do you do individual work, the courses? I know you have a free gift to offer.
Yes. I have a free gift for all the people that are watching. It's 5 holistic tools and techniques to help with the grief process. I can be reached at lrwellnessworks.ca, and they can actually click on the link for the free gift and connect with me. I'm more than willing to see people, either one-to-ones, or I do workshops and facilitate usually groups of 20. I've gone to about 17 communities now, and it's amazing to hear the stories of the people that are going through grief. One of the ladies that took my program, her son was murdered 3 days after taking my program. And she goes, Lise, after I took your program and what I'm going through right now, really helped me to put everything into context in a very holistic, healthy type of way. Instead of, because it was her only son that passed away, she was able to come to terms with that. And that to me was a really huge gift. So I feel that that's very, very important. So I told you about the Grief Warrior program. I told you about the Beyond Grief, A Warrior's Guide to Healing, and then 25 exercises for kids like from kindergarten to 18 years of age. How many of our kids suffer in silence without talking about it?
Yep.
And these tools are to help, families and also teachers and counselors to navigate through the very difficult times of grief.
Wow, that's great. I don't do anything with kids. Tell us a little bit more about the kids program.
Well, the kids program is more like we focus on the arts. We focus also on the writing, all the different ways to help children to heal. And sometimes they're not able to talk about it. Sometimes we can, engage children to even find stories or talk about stories, things that emulate the rites of passage from the cycles of life, from birth to death. And also they can create their own stories by getting them involved in creating like a memory box or a memory poster, similar to adults, but at a children's level with their language of
Right.
what they can, how they can help to understand this type of issue that they're dealing with. Now, kindergartens to 18-year-olds is going to be very different languaging. So looking at the different exercises, some of them have to be minimized. You can heal grief. Take the time to get in touch with your heart and soul and know that you deserve to have the best life ever, because your loved ones want you to live the best life and not to suffer. My gift to you is the heart, to heal your heart and soul so that your family, your coworkers, and all that you have to live for can have the best life ever. You have the life of potential and the ability to make a difference in other people's lives. So remember to live your authentic life, because you're born for a reason. You are a miracle in this life, and I'm here to be a helping hand so that you can achieve your goals and dreams and not get paralyzed with pain, because I was there for a while, and you don't have to suffer by yourself. I'm here to help in any way that I can. And I just want to thank you so much for allowing me to speak to your audience today, and also to my audience, because I'm going to share this with everyone as well.
Yes.
Because we need to heal our world. We have so much going on. So many people are suffering from grief in different ways, especially with the disasters that we see around the world, with the wars, as well as the crises with the weather, especially the hurricanes and such. So grief comes in multiple ways. And I just want you to know that, human life, when you lose them, they live on and move on into another realm that spiritually we can still connect.
Yeah.
And from my heart and soul, thank you for taking the time to listen.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this.